wanted me to fall. I ran with the ball, I handled it all. Catch me before I fall. The cause of it all. My frenemies wanted me to fall. I ran with the ball, I handled it all. Catch me before.
What's up, y'all? What's going on? It's your boy Thomas Jackson. We in here for another one. Absolutely. I want to thank y'all so much for coming in and chopping it up with your boy once again. We are here. Today is Sippie Kup Sunday, so we are in the building, man. Thank y'all so much again, man, for coming in. I want to welcome all of you. I want to give you guys some time to get on up in here because I know it is definitely about to go down. So thank you so much for everything that you guys are doing. Again, if you guys have not been in Sippie Kup Sundays, this is the place where real conversations and real stories take place. We also talk about growth. We talk about respecting ourselves. We talk about honor. We talk about the good and the bad times. And so if you are in here, tonight is going to be a special night. One of the things that we're going to be talking about is actually my story. A lot of times y'all see people that have come in here and they have talked about their story. And, I ask people to share, the hard truths about who they are as an individual and how they overcame things. And so I want to really talk back about, I really want to talk to you guys about how I came about being this specific person, why I'm doing Sippie Kup Sundays, why this is important to me. And why people getting their story out there really matters. And so for me to come up here is definitely going to be a night of vulnerability, but it's also going to be a night where, I'm going to be completely transparent. Some of you, it may be hard for some of the stuff that you got, guys are going to hear tonight, but I want to make sure that you guys will, understand who I am as a person, who I am as a host, who I am as a father, who I am as, just a confidant, a leader, an author, a mentor, all of these things. So we are definitely keeping it real. If you are here tonight, right now, please tap the screen and share this live out to your friends because it's definitely about to get heavy. But as y'all know, I definitely want to ask y'all, what are y'all sipping on tonight? If y'all could put that in the comments for me, that would be absolutely amazing. And also, where are you guys tapping in from? If y'all could put that in the chat, where you guys are tapping in from, that would be amazing. And I see y'all in here. I see y'all in the building. I see y'all in the room. Okay, we got people in here from Tri-City, so thank y'all for popping in here. Absolutely, Tri-City, stand up. I seen some people in here from Vancouver, Washington. Thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate y'all. Okay, we got people in from Oakland, California. Okay, I see y'all in the building. All right, awesome, perfect. So let me go ahead and get started. I guess, so my story is not just one, and I hope that, let me ask y'all first, can y'all hear me okay? I want to make sure that y'all can hear me okay. So if you can give me a thumbs up that y'all can hear me okay, that'd be perfect because I'm about to get started with my story and definitely it's going to get deep. All right, perfect. So, all right, cool, perfect. So let me just tell y'all, starting out, man, I grew up in Oakland, California. Oakland, California is not simply a place for the weak. It's not simply, growing up in my time, it was a very violent era. I learned about violence at a very young age, and violence was something that was, it wasn't foreign to me. I remember the first, the scene of violence, I should say, when I was like 5 years old. I was 5 years old in Oakland, California, and I watched this man basically just get beat. And when I say beat, I'm talking about um, to the point where he was unalive, you know? Uh, and I didn't really, at the time, I didn't really know what was going on necessarily, like as far as like going through. And if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat. I'm more than willing to, answer questions about my story and where I come from and things like that. But um, that was a hard time for me. I didn't understand really what was going on at the time. I knew that it was wrong, but watching things in the movies and seeing, violence, things that were happening in the movies, like that's the only part of it that was wrong that I really felt, that wasn't necessarily um, okay. Um, and then, but my mom, she always, I had a great mother, man. She was a single mother of 6 children, and she struggled. She made it happen for all of us. And I remember like there were nights where I would hear my mom crying, in the other room, but she would never let us see her cry. Like never, never let us see her cry. And I was like, man, it was because where we lived at, it was a dog eat dog world. And my mom, it was not a game. And it's not my really story to tell, her side of the story. But I want to say that hearing her cry in the other room definitely did something to me. It made me want to be a protector. It made me want to be, um, it made me want to be just protect her from the hurt, I guess, to give her comfort where, she didn't have comfort as a single mom. And so as I was going through like all of this turmoil, even at 5, there was other things that were going on. Like, we were going to church, like no matter what, we had a big faith in God that we had to, go to church. And my grandfather, he was a deacon in the church. So I wasn't just in church like on Sundays, like I was in church, in the choir and on the deacon, the deacon meetings and all that stuff. So we were definitely, my mom tried to keep us out of trouble, especially when we was in Oakland. But one of the hardest things happened to me when I was 5 years old. And it affected me for so many years of my life. I was actually molested by, or SA, excuse me, by an uncle of mine. And when that happened, I was like, God, like, where are you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, where are you now? And that's the moment that literally, like, I started wearing masks. I started, trying to play off my hurt. I started suppressing because I was so in fear of what would happen to me, right? Because my abuser told me that, if in fact I was to say something to someone, that he was going to kill me. And because I knew what violence had already been, it was something that made me move out of fear. It made me keep the silence in fear, you know. And so, like, as I'm going through this time and I'm going through church and I'm going to, trying to figure out, you know what I'm saying, a lot of the just my life in general, I was asking myself, like, how can God, at the point say that he loved me when the same person that abused me as a kid did is still in the same church? And if we talk about the spirit of God and God knows all of these things, then why doesn't nobody know what's happening to me? Right. And so as I'm going through this turmoil in my heart, I'm still having to smile. I'm having to be okay. I started getting into a lot of trouble as a kid, like just started acting out, right? Trying to draw attention to myself that something was wrong. But because I didn't want to say, I was so scared to tell what happened to me as a kid, I really didn't know how to put what happened into words because I still had that fear, right? So as I'm going through this stage in my life, as I'm walking through this stage of my life at 5, 6, and 7 years old, I'm going to school. I'm getting in trouble at school. I'm, you know, trying to figure me out, and this is not just something that happened once. It was, multiple times that, I was SA'd by by my uncle, you know, and it was tough, you know, and my grandfather, he was a deacon and, in the church. And I'm like, bro, what? Like, this can't be something that is real. As a kid, I just felt so unsafe. As a kid, I felt so broken, like I couldn't be fixed, because in the era that I grew up in, if something like that happened to you, especially coming from another male, you were considered to be, homosexual, right? And so the embarrassment kept me silent. The fear, kept me silent. Um, the frustration kept me angry. And so I really had to just suppress it and move on. So as I get older, I'm still getting in trouble, whatever. And about 9 years old, I go and move in with my father, right? And my father did not know, at the time, but my father had a habit, right? And I'm pretty sure, like a lot of us, we have had vices and things like that. And so, as I'm going through, you know, this time with my father, and my father became very, how can I say, physically abusive, right? And when I tell you, like, physically abusive, I've been, hit with, hangers, wire hangers. I've been hit with, the metal side of the belt buckle as a kid, um, and the abuse was so real, right? It was so real for me, man. And I tell people, like, all the time, like, I understand more than you think I do. Like, you're not by yourself, like, you're not alone, right? And so as I'm going through all of this, and I'm going through, the abuse from my father, physical, the mental, the emotional abuse from my father, it only made me more angry because I felt like I still was not protected. Like, I didn't have no protection and there was no love there, right? Like, I truly felt like the man that gave me birth hated me for being there, and mind you, I wasn't always, like I said, I like, a lot of the times I made a lot of bad choices trying to cause attention to myself because I was hurting so much, right? And I didn't know how to articulate, what I was going through. And so I get a little bit older, I'm with my dad, and I joined a gang. I got involved in gangs, and just that brotherhood, and trying to figure out life, and because I felt like, if I wasn't getting the love at home, at least I thought, at the time, that that love from my friends was more so than I was getting at home. So I wanted to be in the streets, and I did everything. Some of the stuff I can't obviously say, right? But I did some things that I can never take back. I made choices, committed, all the stuff, and I'm not trying to glorify any of it, because I hurt a lot of people hurting myself, because I was hurt and I didn't realize that I was hurting other people at hurt. I thought it was just life. I thought that was normal, going through all of the stuff. Like, yeah, I'm from Oakland, and it's a lot of killings around, or excuse me, a lot of unaliving around me, a lot of individuals that are, what I mean, that are carrying, pew pews or whatever, and I just felt lost. I felt like I didn't have love. I felt like I didn't have a home, and at that time, I wasn't really necessarily talking to my mom, because my dad basically controlled the phone. So I wasn't really talking to my mom at the time. And it got so bad, my dad got so bad in his addiction, that, he almost, he tried to run me over with a car when I was like 11. And thank God for my Uncle Smiles, God rest his soul. I had called him and told him to come get me because I was so scared. Like, I thought it was a wrap for me. I literally did. I thought it was a wrap for me. And so when he started telling me about, when he stopped my dad and the police had came, thank God the police were going to take me then, but they let me go with my uncle. So I wound up going to stay with my uncles, a bunch of my uncles, and you guys will probably see him on here. But my uncle Bill, my uncle Ant, my uncle Smiles, God rest his soul again. But and just a bunch of other grown men that really taught me like my foundation of respect. And so it was cool. It was on 35th and East Oakland, man, and it was it was so cool, man, just to have all of those male figures that they all had jobs, they all was going out doing their thing, and we would still see them come back from the club, and it was just grown man business, right? And but I also learned a lot of wisdom, from them. I learned a lot how to respect myself, how to keep myself clean. I learned how to cook. I'm 11 years old in the kitchen whipping with the OGs, and but I also learned how to clean because the youngsters, like the OGs, put the meal together. And oh, thank you, Unc, I appreciate it. The OGs put the meals together, but the youngsters, we had to clean it up. And it was just a blessing, man. And that's why I hold my friendships dear, because I understand what community is. Like some of the OGs didn't even have money, but whatever the OGs put together at that time, everybody got a plate. No matter if you had money or not, everybody got an opportunity to get a plate, right? So I learned about community, and I learned about like the value of friendship. And so as I'm going through life, I'm like, man, I'm with my OGs, and then I wound up, going into foster care, right? I wound up going into foster care at I believe 11 years old, and guys, please forgive me of some of these times. If you guys are seeing this and some of the times and dates are off, it's just been a very long time. And as I was going through a lot of my trauma at the time, like my memory is not necessarily of that time, like really on point. But I think it was about 11 years old, man. I go to juvie, and as I go to juvenile detention center, I'm sitting in this cell, man, on 150th, and I'm like, this is what my life is supposed to be. I've seen this in the movies, that I've watched, people going to jail, getting locked up. I know what it is here. It's a dog eat dog world in here. So the first night I'm in here, I'm hearing people screaming. I'm hearing a young man get SA'd in the hallway down from me. And I was just like, I'm literally in this jungle. I'm here. And so I'm like, I'm never going to let nobody harm me. I'm never going to let nobody harm my people. I know what that feeling is. And so I became a protector. So I get into foster care, and I go and I stay with a pastor and his wife, Stephen Portia Sumner. That's what the names are. And I'm in East Oakland. I'm going to church every day, but in my mind, they were so kind, but they were very strict. Boy, was they strict, and they would talk to me about, why I would lie a lot, because I used to lie a lot as a kid, like, when I was in foster care, because I was afraid to get in trouble, because I knew for me that getting in trouble meant abuse. So getting in trouble for me meant that I was going to be abused. It meant that, I was going to get hit with a belt, or I was going to get, slapped in the face, or I was going to get drugged or choked, all of these different things, that have happened to me. So I was always fear. Like I remember one night, man, I'm sitting in the house, and I vacuumed half the floor, and it was like, but I had got a phone call, and so I started talking on the phone instead of finishing the floor. And when they come home, and I was supposed to do it, and I was like, well, I did vacuum the floor, and they was like, no, you didn't. Well, I didn't realize that, because I was so young, the lines in the floor will tell you whether you got to a point, right, where you vacuumed the floor or not. You could see the areas where the floor was vacuumed. So I knew I was cooked, right? Well, I didn't know I was cooked, but I was trying to be uncooked by lying. And so as I'm going through all of this stuff, as I'm going through the lie, they catch me up in a lie. And so, and I love them, man. I kid you not. They set me, they really put me on this path back on a path to, being in the church and God after I hated going to church, because of, the abuse that happened when I was younger. And so there's this one kid I used to get into a fight with, man. And if you ever get the chance to watch this on 35th, I can't Deshaun Gooseby. Um, and he had a brother named Booby. If you ever get a chance to watch this, man, I want to tell you that number one, I'm sorry for what was happening to you, that I didn't know why you were fighting me all the time. But there's this kid that, we used to fight all the time. And I'm like, bro, I don't want to fight you. Like, we would play one day and then the next day we fight. And then, okay, Deshaun, that's his name. Okay, yeah. Like we would play one day and then we would fight like another day, right? And I'm like, bro, why do you want to keep? Yeah, his father's name was Miles. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I was like, man, I don't know why this dude keep fighting me. Like, he doesn't win the fight, but he wants to keep fighting me. And come to find out, he was going through, physical abuse at home. You know what I'm saying? Thanks. He was going through physical abuse at home. And so his father would make him fight me, and so as I continued to keep fighting this guy, when I went to foster care, the kid found out where I lived, which it wasn't too far from where, my uncles were. And he wound up coming, to fight me at my foster home. So I wound up getting locked up from the foster home and then going back to 150th. So I get to 150th. My mom comes to visit me. I believe my grandma was there. I'm not sure. But they sent me to Redding, California. And so I'm in Redding, California. Okay. And I'm telling you, Redding is nothing like Oakland whatsoever at all. It's not, right? So I get to Redding, California, and I'm staying with this lady this name, Brandy Beckelman. And at the time, it was so foreign to me to be in a peaceful place by that time, like to just have straight peace that, I would create moments of chaos, and not know why. But I kid you not, when I was in that foster care, that lady was so nice. And I remember this one time because she had I had foster brothers. When I was in foster care, I had a few foster brothers. One, Stephen Lusk, that I remember very well. He was the oldest at the time. And then we had a couple other, and I can't remember. One of them was Bill, but I can't remember who he was. What's up, Teo? Nice to see you here, man. But as I'm going through foster care, we became very close, and those became my brothers. And God rest Hussein. Wish you were here, bro, but he's not. But as I'm going through foster care, I'm learning things. I'm learning about chicken coops, and I'm telling you, for the longest time I could not stand chickens. I didn't want. I could not stand the smell of chickens. I was just like, I'm so cool because they stink. The chicken coops, if you ain't on top of it every day, they stink. I'm gonna keep it real. Having chickens is a job and a half. So, but as I'm learning about this, as I'm learning about discipline, and she was just so nice, man. She taught me truly like to learn how to accept love, because I didn't really know how to accept it at all. I didn't know how to, talk to people about my feelings or emotions. And she would just sit me down and talk to me. And then she wound up dating this guy named Russ, who was a Marine. And then they wind up getting married, and she's now, Brandy Groves. And Russ, man, he didn't play. He wouldn't let us cuss in front of her no more. He wouldn't it was full on respect, But as I was going to school, I dealt with a lot of racism in school, and people knew that I was in foster care. So I got, talked about a lot. I got, bullied a lot. When I was going through, foster care, I didn't have the best of clothes, things like that. And it was tough, man. It was tough. At that time, it was a couple years where I was just in high school now. And I literally felt, like the world was on my shoulders, and I was like, well, how can these people, in one night she was like, I love all of you guys. I love all of my kids. I love all of my sons. And one day I just kind of lost it because at the time I didn't hear from my family for a while. And I was like, how can this person say that they love me when, I felt so alone and I didn't feel like I had my family at the time. And so as I'm going through that, I was feeling broken, man. I was feeling broken, and I attempted, to unalive myself. I did, and I wound up going to a hospital and going into a mental health facility as a kid, and sitting there thinking, and I'm watching these doctors, bro, fill these kids up with drugs. I mean, I'm talking about um, the doctors were, if the kids were acting out, they were, you know, um, giving them needles full of stuff that just literally knock them right out. And I was like, I don't want that to happen to me. So I need to be able to get out of here because if they keep me here, this is what's going to happen to me. And some of them was drooling on themselves. I mean, another traumatic experience. Um, so then I went to, they finally released me and said, you're fine. You're okay. Do you want to harm yourself? And I told them no, just so I could leave. Well, when I get to my next, foster home, I get there and there's this woman there, and they put me with her, and she was an older black woman, and I don't even remember her name because it was just so traumatic when I was staying there. Like the only thing that she gave us was 14 at the time. The only thing that she gave us was alcohol and top ramen. Like literally, we didn't have no meal at all whatsoever. So she would literally go to the store, allow us to drink 40 ounces of Old English and and top ramen. And so it was so bad that I don't even remember. Oh, okay. So it was so bad that they wound up putting me in this continuation school. And this kid, he would call me the N word, so I wound up doing something to him that doing something to him that's so bad that I wound up going back to juvenile detention center. Okay, beat him up real bad. And so when I went to juvenile detention center, they shipped me back to Oakland. And then I wound up meeting this guy named Jack Graves for LifeWorks Academy. This is what it was called at the time. I don't know if it's even still out there, and so thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate it, Theo. And so as I get into 150, go back to 150, if I go to LifeWorks Academy, it's this group home. So I get into this group home and I hate it here. It's like 10 or 13 of us, between 10 and 13 of us staying, and we all had our, rooms and stuff like that. But the coach that we like, the director of the group home was also the head football coach, the basketball coach, and the track coach. So literally when we would get in trouble, we would have to run up this hill that was about a quarter mile. And I'm talking about when they tell you to run laps, you would literally have to run like 20 laps, 50 laps, or 100 laps. And I remember at one point, it got so bad that, for us kids there and the way that we were treated, that some people literally hitchhiked to the Greyhound station and then, got their tickets and went back to either San Francisco, Oakland, and things like that. But one of the crazy things that happened to me in that place is that, they gave me 100 laps because for some odd reason, my father had called and said he was coming to see me. And I was super excited, and I sat outside, and I remember that feeling of just sitting outside and my dad telling me that he's coming because I just haven't seen family in about 3 years, and so I was like, cool, so I waited outside all day till it was dark, and they told me to come inside. And so I became defiant. I'm like, nah, I'm not going inside. I'm not going, you know what I'm saying? I'm not finna sit up here and, talk to anybody. Like, I want to see my dad, and so because I became defiant, they started adding laps. So the next day, and he didn't show up. He never showed up. I was just so broken that they told me I had to run 100 laps. Now, mind you, 100 laps is like running 100 quarter miles. Okay. At the time. So if you divide 100 by 4, that's 25 miles that I had to run. And I remember that they gave me a peanut butter sandwich to eat if I didn't complete it. So I was eating peanut butter and cold top ramen literally until I finished all my laps. And I knew, like, here goes another form of, in my mind, another form of abuse. Like, and if I don't comply with the abuse, then um, I'm just gonna be another kid, stuck out here, or I'm gonna get locked up, or I'm never gonna see my family again. And so they kept me outside, literally outside, until it was so late. Um, yeah, and so um, it was just so hard. And mom, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did that. They lied about a lot of stuff. There to basically try to break us. And so going through um, going through that, it really, there were some good times there because I played sports. So all the pain and all the stuff that I was going through at that time, we became like champions. I had, uh, they wanted me to play football for Santa Rosa JC because that's who, like, the scouts were already looking at me. So I would go practice with the scouts at Santa Rosa JC as a quarterback and an outside linebacker. So they were looking at me at both sides of the ball because that's what I played. But so that it wasn't all necessarily bad, but I just remember those traumatic times. I did learn a lot about discipline. I did learn a lot about working out. I did learn a lot in school as well. I always had good grades. They made sure that we had good grades in school. And so when I came home, around 16 years old, I came home, and my mom picked me up actually. And I remember this. She picked me up and we drove from Cali to Portland, Oregon. And as I'm out here in Portland, as I'm out there in Portland, man, I'm just like different. Everything's different. My mother looked different. My brothers looked different. My sisters looked different. And I felt kind of like lost. And I almost felt like I was at another foster home per se. Like, but I wasn't. I was actually home. And so I'm still trying to figure out like my life and how to maneuver and how to be, how can I say, just how to be a kid, because I had to, go to work. I had to take care of myself. I had to, make sure that I had my own back. I had to make sure that I could, take care of myself. I felt like I didn't really know how to be a kid, that I was a man. I had to be a man, from the time I got locked up at 11. And so there was no point of, trying to go back and find my childhood. So as I'm with my mom, I was just, I kind of came home like with this chip on my shoulder. I was angry because I was lied to about a lot. Like, oh, your mom, she didn't want to see you, or I was told all of these things, and like I said, I didn't see him for about four years. 4 to 4.5 years. I felt like I didn't see them, and as I was going through all of this, I'm asking myself, like, how do you love when you don't really know like what that is? Like, love for me was something that I saw on TV, right? It was always something I saw on TV. Everybody coming together, everybody's great, everybody showing love, and that wasn't the life that I lived. So my love came in the form of protection, if that makes sense. And so, like, if I seen somebody like hurt, or if I seen somebody being bullied, like, I'm at a problem instantly, And so a lot of people who know me knew me, and I'll get to this point a little later, but knew me as a protector in a real different way. And so I get to this point in my life, I'm in high school, I had problems with my mom, I wasn't listening. I wind up, having to be on my own. I went and stayed with a friend. As I go stay at my friend's house, I'm figuring it out. Same thing. I go back to what's normal for me. I go back to drinking in the high school, kicking it with my friends because I thought that was normal for a high school kid because that's all I knew. Like my foster mom was giving us alcohol, so I figured, this was something that high school kids just normally did, even though I played sports, right? So I played sports and, we kicked it and I was hustling, I had to hustle to make sure that I had clothes, things like that. And, I wound up staying with my sister for some months, or a year actually. And as I'm staying with my sister, or let me skip, I skipped ahead. So I go back to stay with my dad because my dad had wound up moving to Washington. And I didn't now at this point, I knew that my dad was, utilizing substances, and so I'm like seeing my dad having these paranoia episodes. I'm seeing my dad trying to figure it out, and I'm like, man, I not only have to go to school and try to go back to school and deal with this, but when I come home, I got to deal with this, and so I felt like I had no place of peace at that time staying with my dad, and then this one kid, when I was going to Mountain View High School in Vancouver, this one kid, he was messing with my cousin. And my cousin is a female, my favorite cousin. Shout out, to Weewa. What's up with it, cousin? But he was messing with my cousin. And I told him, I said, if you put your hands on my cousin one more time, bro, it's going to be a problem. And my cousin was like, nah, bro, you just came home. Like, let's not get locked up. But I didn't really care about being locked up because I was so used to it. Like, it was normal for me to be locked up. Like, I was so used to being normal and so institutionalized. Like, that was my life. That's how I grew up. And so it was normal for me to be like, bro, I'm not really worried. I'm not scared to be in prison. I'm not scared to go to jail. Like, that part don't fear me. I done been in the worst jail. So being locked up in Washington it's easy for me. It's like a cakewalk, right? So I wind up, get into a fight with this kid and got kicked out of school. And so I got to go to school in Portland, so I go stay with my sister in Portland, on 82nd in Woodstock. So so I was in it, and I was going to Marshall High School. And I remember, I couldn't play sports for him. And my mom got me actually hooked up in there while I was staying with my sister. So I was going to school. And I finished school, and then a couple of years later, I was staying with another friend, Greg Meyer. And Greg Meyer, man, he was such a blessing. I don't know how God really put all of these people in my life for me to be able to have like a roof over my head, but that's where I was at. And then I go to Job Corps. I get to Job Corps. I go to Job Corps. I graduate the program literally in a couple of months. And because I was just naturally smart, I always kept good grades. I just had I was always just angry, I played sports, you know what I mean? Almost literally got talked to by the coach of U of O for football right before my senior year. And then I go into my senior year, getting ready to head, for a scholarship. And then boom, I get injured. I tear my ligaments in my ankle. So my dreams for football were done. I was in a cast. I was in a wheelchair for a minute. It was over for me. And so as I'm going through all of this, turmoil in my life, and even again, I'm just like, man, like I can't win for losing. You know what I'm saying? Like I really can't win for losing. And I was stressed out. I was like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? So, I went to Job Corps. I wind up actually meeting this girl who was a lot older than me. She was 28 and I was 18 years old. And, at the time I thought I was doing my thing because, she had a house, everything was straight, some stability, whatever. But I'm heading off to the military and getting ready to go in the Army. So we wound up actually getting married just for the benefits. Like it wasn't necessarily a love thing, but it was more so, if you're married, I didn't want to leave her stuck, you know what I mean? Because I was, doing my thing and, I was paying all the bills, so I didn't want to leave her stuck. So I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, of course, let's get these benefits. Let's make it happen. I'm gonna be gone anyway, and y'all gonna be taken care of. Just hold it down until I get back. Well, I didn't know, at the time in my mind, to be honest, I just wanted to have somebody that was solid for me because I didn't have people that were solid in my life. I was always moving, I was always going, back and forth to different places, so I didn't have that stability, and that seemed like it was going to be a definite stable environment for me to be in. So then I go to the military, and I'm a private now. Boom, so after a while being in the military, some things had happened to where I had to, put my hand on one of my commanding officers and got sent home with a general discharge only because he had spit in my face. So it was an assault on his part, but because of how far I took it, I came home. So yes, your boy was in the military for sure. But after I get home, come to find out that wife that I married was cheating on me with my brother. And someone had told me the day that I had came back, like, oh, your brother had been over there, you need to watch her because, one of my neighbors, who knew me and knew her, saw them together. Right. But I just let it slide. I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. You probably just hating because you see me, whatever. So when I get home, I'm looking at our accounts and things like that, and all the money had been gone from our account. So she had wound up taking all of the money, that I had stacked, we were stacking or whatever, and she ran off with basically dated my brother and had me thrown in jail. And lied on me, basically said I put my hands on her and I went to jail. And I'm like, man, like I was so at that point in my life, I was so hurt, bro. I was so hurt that every ounce of care or love that I had to give somebody was gone. And I think my mother saw that change because, I think that when I came back from the military, I was already different, but that on top of what I had dealt with in the military and seeing, my friends like lose their life to war and things like that, because at that time it was, we were in Afghanistan, and so the United States, we were, going through that Afghanistan war. And so seeing my friends not make it home, or seeing them come home injured without limbs and things like that from war, it was unreal for me. And I just want to say shout out to all the veterans. Thank you for your service, because no one really understands what we see or what we go through in times of war. So thank you for what we do. But yes, back to the story. As I'm going through this time in my life, I just didn't have no care. So I started wilding out. Okay. When I say wilding out, like I got back into, the gang culture, got back into the streets, started hustling. And it was like, I would say a matter of like 10 years of just chaos on top of chaos, man. Chaos on top of chaos, 10 years. And I would say 7 years. Let me take that back, 7 years, because 25, about 25 until I was about 25. So 7 years of just chaos to where I became one of the most feared people in the city. And that's not something that I'm proud of at all, because a lot of people got hurt, some people lost their lives to that life, some people got strung out on drugs. I've had friends or people that I've known since I was 9 years old try to set me up to have me unalived, all of it. Like I went through it all, people that, people who I thought that really said that they love me and care for me, turn their back on me, the betrayal. And I think that's one of the things that really, even to this day, like loyalty is everything to me, and so, I know that a lot of people see that. If you know me personally, you'll know that, loyalty is such a real thing to me based on how I grew up. And so as I get through, as I'm going through this trial, the same lady that told me about my brother told me about right before I was going to prison. She said, Thomas, if in fact you keep going down this road, they're gonna try to lock you under the jail. And I'm like, what? She said, if you continue on this path, they're gonna try and lock you under the jail. I seen it in a dream, or I had a vision of you. And I was like, So I didn't take no count of it. I ain't gonna cap. I didn't take no count of it at all whatsoever. I kept doing my thing. I had a pocket full of money. I'm doing my thing. I'm the man in the streets. I'm, feeling it. I was just having my way. And then a week later, a week later, so somebody tried to unalive me, a coworker actually, because I always kept a job and a hustle, right? For street purposes, but I always kept a job and a hustle. My uncles taught me that if you're gonna do something wrong, always keep a job and a hustle, And so as one of my coworkers, we all went out one night, we all kicking it, and I wind up getting into an altercation at a club. So we ran up out of there and then we leave. And then on top of that, my coworker was like, bro, let's just stop by my house real quick. So we go stop by his house and come to find out there's 3 other dudes there. My girl, she's trying to use the restroom, and come to find out they set me up to try and unalive me and rob me. And then and kidnap the girl that I was with. So as I'm going through this, I'm fighting these 3 dudes trying to get her out of the house. They waited until she went to the bathroom to try to attack me. And so as I try to get on me. So as I'm fighting with these 3 dudes, I'm telling her to come out of the bathroom, and I'm in this long hallway. So I rush through the hallway. I'm rushing through the hallway, fighting these 3 dudes, trying to get out of the house and push them in the living room. Like I got tased. I got hit with a club or something metal. I got hit with that. And so I go back. I'm like, bro, I'm like, what? I'm like, oh no, I'm with all the festivities and activities. You know what I'm saying? So I go back, I go, holler at my brothers and the homies, and I'm like, bro, I gotta go do this job like ASAP, this job I gotta see this all the way to the end, So I go back, we get into another altercation. I attempted to, unalive this cat, which and so now, boom, I'm going on the run for that. I went on the run for that. And while I'm on the run for that, trying to, stack some bread, because I already know I'm finna go up, right? I wound up catching another charge. I got into a high-speed chase. I ran over a police officer, and they was about to unalive me in front of my mom. Literally, I got to a high-speed chase where I pulled back in her apartment. If I didn't get there, they was going to unalive me. There was no doubt in my mind the way that they was trying to hit the car, the way that they even tried to smash me in between the 2 cars when I put my hands up. It was real, like I wasn't supposed to be here. So then I'm sitting in this situation where, you know what I mean, I'm looking at 229 months plus life. They was trying to give me 24 years to life at 25 years old with all these cases stacked up. I had 3 cases stacked up. And this lawyer that I had, and I'll shout out Lisa Toth, man, you're a real one, for real. You saved my life, straight up. I done sent her flowers, telling her thank you, everything, man, straight up, for real. But as I'm going through this, I'm talking to myself, Selly, and he's like, bro, you cooked, and I'm like, bro, I already know it is what it is. I already knew I was, coming to this, but my mom told me, she was like, just keep the faith, son. Just do what you need to do is pray, And so one night, I kid you not, man, I sat in the cell, and I was like, God, I know I'm not here because of what I did, but I'm here because I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening to those times when you told me I shouldn't have did that, and I did it anyway, And so I had a real conversation, like a heart to heart. I wasn't in no Christian faith. I wasn't a Muslim at the time. I wasn't doing nothing, I just had a real one-on-one with God, period. And so I'm sitting there, and I get my lawyer. My lawyer was like, well, we could do this, we could do this. She was like, have you been to college? I'm like, yeah. She was like, were you in the military? I'm like, yeah. She was like, well, what happened? And I said, to be honest, man, I was going through so much that I just gave up. I gave up on hope. And she said, well, hopefully I can restore that for you. So I get to court. She was like, I'm gonna try to get you a global resolution. And I'm like, what's that? She was like, well, we put all your cases together, because I had 3 separate cases, and we put it together like it's a crime spree, but it'll basically knock your time down significantly. And man, so what happened was she pleaded with the judge. I had an opportunity to speak to the judge during my sentencing, and the judge was like, listen, that I don't have to go with this deal, right? And I'm like, yes, I understand, Your Honor. And she said, but you know what? I'm going to give you a chance. She said, but if I ever see you in my courtroom, you're going to do a lot of time. That is her exact quote. Her name is Judge Schreiber in Vancouver, Washington. I kid you not, bro. She literally gave me this chance, bro. I was looking at life in prison, bro. My first time ever going up. And so I took the deal. She went with it. She said, if you ever come in here, she was like, I'm going to sentence you to 33 months. So I go in there. I'm like, cool. Okay. I'm sitting in there. I'm like, cool. Okay. My cellies I was like 33 months. Okay. I can knock that down. That's a couple of years. I still got some time. I still got life left after this. So I go sit in there. On my way to prison, I meet this dude. He was like, you ever been to prison before? I said, nah, man. He was like, I can tell. I was like, why you say that? He said, because you just look a little nervous. I said, because I know what prison come with, I've been doing this all my life. You know what I'm saying? So I know what it come with. So then he said, listen, man, I'm going to tell you how to get through this. He said, don't gamble and do your own time. He said, don't be in everybody's business. Your business is books. That's it. Just read books, educate yourself, handle your business, but do your own time. Don't gamble. I said, all right. I took that to heart, but I wasn't listening to him. I mean, I was listening to him, but I wasn't, right? I'm like, all right, bro, whatever, whatever. We get to the yard. Like the first time I see this dude on the yard, I looked at him. I was like, oh, what's up? And he stopped. He looked at me and he just shook his head like, no. Then he took his shirt off. On the back of his shirt was all the Nazi leaders tattooed on his back. He had the keys to the car for the Aryan Nation. So here it is, this dude who could have literally had my life taken at any point in time where I was at, is now giving me the key to get me back home. And so I took real heed to what he said. As I get up to Coyote Ridge from the R units, this was in the R units, and the R units is like the intake, for Shelton, Washington, right? So once you get to Shelton, that's the intake, and then you go off to your like mother prison. So I get there, I get to Coyote Ridge, boom, I'm sitting there, I'm cooling, I'm like, okay, I'm playing cards with the homies, whatever. I'm just not gambling, just trying to stay out the way, kicking it with the older cats. One day to Chow, I'm on my way to Chow, and it's the chicken night, and we only got chicken once a month, so I was definitely for this one. So I'm on my way to Chow, and all of a sudden, someone was like, "What's up, son?" And I'm like, and the homie was like, "Hey, brother, OG talking to you." And I said, "Who?" He said, "OG." He was like, and I looked up, and there was my father. I'm sitting in the cell with my father. I'm sitting at the Chow with my father. I chop it up with him. I see him at Chow. I said, "What's up?" Mind you, I was so angry with my father. So from the time I got locked up, I didn't see my dad at all. So I seen him a couple times. after that, but then some years went by. Like I didn't see my dad probably since 2007, and this at this time it's like 2010, 2010, yeah, 2010, 2011. So I see him, and then 2 weeks later they like roll up. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm finna roll. I'm finna roll up. I'm finna go home. I'm like, what? Am I going to another prison? They like, nah, you going over to this pod. Next thing I know, they celled me up with my father. We in the same cell. So of course, all of the anger, all of the hurt, all of the frustration, we in the same cell. And what happened was, one night I heard him crying on the top bunk. I heard him crying about what was going on. Just, just sobbing. So the next day I let him do his thing. Let him do his man thing or whatever. So next day, I asked him. I said, "Why did you do all that stuff to me?" You know what I'm saying? When I was younger, and he said, "I'm sorry, son. I was on drugs." And I just at that moment, like life, he was already diagnosed schizophrenic, and I would see my dad talking to himself, laughing and joking, you know, uh, just yeah, in his own world, I should say, in his own reality at the time when I was going through prison, having to protect someone who never protected me. And I chose to forgive him for everything that happened. I chose to forgive him, and I would because I saw my future. I'm like, if I keep going the route that I'm going, if I keep hanging on to this hurt, if I keep hanging on to this anger, I'm gonna be just like him. I'm already like the very person that I hated. We in the same cell, sharing meals, eating snacks together. This is my future if I don't change my life. So then I get to so then I get home, I get out, I do my thing, you know, um, I wind up having a son later on in life, and my son changed everything for me. I'm skipping ahead for the sake of time, but my son changed everything for me, man. He did. He changed everything for me. He literally taught me how to love because all the anger, all that was gone, bro. It was gone. I told people I loved them. I didn't even know what love was. I didn't even love me, to be honest. I didn't. So I couldn't love somebody if I didn't know how to love myself. So I wound up, learning how to love through my son and being a father to him and understanding that, some of the choices that I can't make the same choices and have my son see me in a cell, like I had to see my father. And so started figuring out how to change. I didn't have a formula, but I started figuring out, how to really make that change. I had just walked away from the life. I was heavy in the streets, and I either had to be in the streets or be a father, and I chose to be a father instead of being in the streets. So I move out the city, I'm going through it. And then um, basically as I'm being a father and being a father, it was, I'm not going to speak on, his mother, but it's a very tumultuous situation. So, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. But another thing that happened, my uncle Marcus, God rest his soul, he was like a father to me. He was like the tone of wisdom throughout my life. Like he would know when I'm not, like when I wasn't doing good because I wouldn't call him. I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna talk to you because you finna hit me with a whole sermon. So you finna give it to me, right? So I was like, I didn't want to talk to him, but as I'm sitting there on my way to come see him one night, I get a call from my mother. And the most, how can I say? Oh man, sorry, I'm a little emotional right now. Speaking about this, but the most horrible phone call that I could ever receive when it comes to losing a parent, because he was like my dad. I had a father, but he was my dad, and he had unalived himself. And when my mom told me that, it changed everything for me. It changed everything for me. Everything. This and what I mean by that, he was a great author. You know, um, he was an amazing, just mentor for me. Like he was like I knew that he was somebody that I could truly count on in my life, regardless um, of no matter who I was, he never quit on me. You know what I'm saying? Um, but you never know what somebody's going through, bro. You never know, And so um, through all of that hurt, I wanted to make sure that the people that were around me had the tools, um, had the understanding, had love, understanding, loving themselves, and how important it is to love who you are. No, despite what traditions, religion, your parents, your grandparents, ancestors say, loving you is the most important thing in this life. And that's been my message. I became a peer counselor in 2021 in Washington State, and I took 38 trainings my first year working as a peer counselor, trying to figure out the best possible ways, creating because I had been a part of the system. It was so easy for me to learn, and it was so easy for me to go inside the systems and help change the systems for the people that were in it, because most people who were teaching, or trying to teach people not to utilize drugs or excuse me, not to use substances, or not to, with behavioral health conditions, most people have never been through that. They never experienced it, but they make all the rules for it, right? So as I was going into these systems, I was like, well, this is a hole. And so I really changed one of the housing systems in the HARPS programs in Olympia, Washington. I became a supervisor over 5 counties in Washington after that, and helped kind of reshape that for a company, a huge company in Washington State. And then I became the program director for the Washington State Peer Counsel Network. I actually developed that app with a team, but I was the before I even started working for the company, I had knew that this is something that I wanted to do. And so we put the app together, and it's still booming right now. We also developed a jobs database. And then I got this award. And I got this award that generally takes people 10 to 20 years to get. It's called the Cindy Willie Award. I got that award, and I did it in 4 years, And this is not to toot my own horn. And people have never, no one has ever seen me holding this award. And I have it, I literally have it in a box downstairs, and I'm going to tell you why. Once I got that award, literally the day that I got that award, I had someone who was facing, who had a conversation that to them, the person was being racist in leadership at the healthcare authority. I'm gonna just keep it a buck, at the healthcare authority. And I had talked to my boss about it. My boss called them on 3-way. And then a week later, a couple of days later, she told me to drop it. And I told her no. I said, we need to be more culturally competent, because this person was afraid to say something because they were undocumented. And I said, just because you didn't think what you said was racist does not necessarily mean that it wasn't. Just because you didn't mean it for it to be racist doesn't mean that it wasn't. Right. And so all in all, basically what happened is, because I was investigating it, I got fired. So here it is, the same system that I helped build, that I trusted. The lady was like, well, I don't feel safe in a room with this person, because I literally tried to call this person to the mat on their choices of words. And I stand up, and let me just tell y'all something. I stand up for humanity. I don't care if it right is right and wrong is wrong. I don't care what race you are, right? So if I don't care what my position is, I'd rather be broke in the truth than rich in a lie. So if me telling the truth is going to bother your conscience, I'm going to let you know this right now. Do not come around me. because I keep it all the way 100. I don't care what your feelings do for you. I'm not responsible for them. So if you don't want something to be said, don't say it to me. Because if you can't stand on your own words, then guess what? You probably gonna say something about me. You feel me? So don't come around me. And I'm comfortable enough to hang out with myself. Like I'm comfortable with me enough to hang out with myself, and I actually enjoy me. You know what I'm saying? So, but other than that, um, I want to make sure that like just people are being held, accountable. Right? I'm going to hold you accountable to what you say. Period. And I expect you to do the same for me. But so they fired me. So I went through, and then I lost. Then I lost four people that were close to me in a very short time. And at one point, almost lost my mom, or thought I was going to lose my mom. And so I was going through this major depression. And yes, men get depressed, and it's okay. And I'm saying all of these things, and I'm telling this story. And the reason I'm telling this story is because men go through it. We go through things, and we're expected not only to go through all of this, but we're also expected to hold everybody up at the same time. We're human beings. Just like either a woman, when you go through things, and I'm not saying that there are some men that treat women like they can't have feelings, and that's out of pocket. Just like a man has feelings, so does a woman have feelings, period. And so I want to say this. The reason why I started this podcast is because I want people to know that they're not alone in whatever that they're going through. And when people share their stories on here, it's not for us to try to boost them up or make it seem like they're better than you. We get down to the real nitty and gritty here. And so it's only right for me to tell you guys who your host is, what I've been through, why this podcast is important to me, and why it's important to us as a humanity. This is a safe space for us to be real and be like, man, I've been through this. So if I bring y'all up on the panel, or if you guys want to share your story as a guest, on here, like definitely DM me. Let's bring this together. Let's let people know, like, you don't have to be alone by yourself. Like, you don't have to feel like you got to go through life by yourself, or you're the only one that's ever been through that situation, because honestly, that's what depression does. It tries to make you feel like you are the only person going through it, when there's people that have gone through it and overcome it, and you're able to connect with those individuals, right? And then now you got two minds are better than one. And so I just wanted to come in here tonight and really, get deep with my story and just tell y'all, like, listen, if you've ever gone through anything that I've gone through, like, you're not alone. And make sure that if you guys want to connect with me, if y'all can tap in with the Mousy Chronicles, please do tap in with her. She is my executive assistant. She will definitely connect with you guys. Or on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitch, it's Mallory Saldana. So if you guys want to connect with her, please do. She will set up a meeting for us to be able to go over your story and see if we can get you on Sippie Kup Sundays. And I just want to tell you guys, man, thank you guys so much for always tuning in with me, listening to my story. If you guys can, we will be back here next Sunday doing our thing. We are changing our time to 6 p.m. On Sundays, so that way we're able to connect with individuals on the East Coast as well, as much as we are. It was just a little late, so we had it at 8:45, so it was a little bit late. And so we want to make sure that we're not only, telling ourselves that, here on the West Coast, but we want everybody to be a part of Sippie Kup Sundays, because I'm not tripping on what you sipping. Ooh, that was good. World peace. But listen, yeah. So guys, again, thank you so much for coming in for Sippie Kup Sundays. We are going to be back next week. If y'all want to connect, again, DM me, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitch, follow me on, all the platforms. Follow me on all the platforms, man. We here. You know what I'm saying? I'm on TikTok right now too. So follow me on TikTok. Y'all go subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's author Thomas Jackson, author _ Thomas _ Jackson. And yeah, man, let's build this community, man. We all deserve to win. You know what I'm saying? So if y'all need some encouragement, if y'all need some love, if y'all need a person to talk to, man, let's get to it so we can go through it. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Y'all stay blessed. Again, this is Sippie Kup Sundays, and we'll see y'all next week.
I got my mask out in a fast route. Lord, don't let me crash out.